name is Tom. I'm a physio that works with PMS, and I'm doing this presentation as a way of feedbacking from a course that I did at the Bath Centre for Pain Services at the Royal National Hospital for Rheumatic Disease, which is in Bath, funnily enough. So we're going to be looking at the psychological principle of ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm going to bring you a number of presentations which look at various different aspects of ACT, but we're going to start off just by looking at the concept and its history. If you want to get hold of these presentations, then you should ideally receive them either in email from your manager, or they are available from a Dropbox account with the details on that first page there, so please feel free to go and have a look at them. So we're going to look at what ACT is, to explore where it comes from, and just give a lead into the future presentations, which are going to look into a little bit more detail at how it can be used and what the features that make it up are. So the reason that we try to employ some of the techniques in ACT or other psychological principles like CBT is we're trying to help individuals to self-manage a long-standing condition, and as a result they're going to need to change some of their behaviours. What we're very good at as health professionals is delivering information. We have lots of sheets, lots of websites, lots of ideas to tell people about and to show people. Unfortunately, as is suggested by the British Pain Society's guidance on pain management programs, that information is not always the best mediator for changing behaviour. And as you can see on the screen, there was a quote by Bill Fordyce saying that information is to behaviour change what spaghetti is to a brick wall. So, we consider ourselves to be practitioners of pain management making use of CBT principles, and we recognise as a result of this a number of different things, that it's about treating individuals that are in pain, not just simply trying to reduce their symptomatic level. As a result, we're trying to treat a person rather than a set of symptoms, and that it's about empowering the individual, and thus it's about behaviour change within that individual that allows us to instigate something that might be useful. So behaviour change is very central to what we do. So we have an idea of CBT. It's quite a broad term these days. It's used to mean many different things. And this is a diagram of how it has developed over time. The root of CBT has come from conditioning theory, which Pavlov and his dogs was a famous example of early experiments into this field, where a behaviour, in the case of the experiment that is most famous, salivating, was conditioned in response to a stimulus, the bell being rung. So this was used as operant conditioning as a way of encouraging what we would consider positive behaviours in the people that we work with. So by praising them and discouraging them from behaviours that are bad. Now I'm sure that this does still feature in many forms of what we do. It's a central part of how human beings communicate. But this was developed to look at how we, rather than just promoting what we would consider good behaviour and relegating bad behaviour, it was also about looking at the intrinsic drivers of that individual, so what made them do what they do. It's classic CBT, although, as I've said, it has very many variants, looks from the principle that our thoughts affect our behaviours, and if somebody can address the way that they think, or address the thoughts that they have, that they can potentially have a good chance of changing those behaviours, so by being aware of thoughts and addressing them. So where does that come from? Well, Stephen Hayes was an early pioneer of the concept. It came from his and his colleagues' criticisms of CBT's ideas of dysfunctional and functional thought, that there are good thoughts and there are bad thoughts, and we should be encouraging people to have one or the other. The idea is that in some ways you could consider it an existentialist idea that there is no good or bad. And as Shakespeare said, it is thought that makes it. So through the use of relational framework theory, he develops an idea that the meaning that we attribute things, or the relationship between things, is very important. And as a result of this arose many of the concepts within ACT, the fusion and diffusion from thoughts, the self as context, and our ability to accept things too. ACT as a model was developed and was initially propagated by publications of books and academic papers, and is now propagated by bodies in the UK, by, for example, Bath and the Royal National Hospital for Rheumatic Disease, British Pain Society, and also input St Thomas's in London, with Lance Crackham being an exponent in many of these cases. So, what is ACT? The goal of ACT is not the regulation of emotion or cognition, but it's the ability to respond flexibly. So contacting the moment in the service of our values. So very similar to, or sharing some of the same concepts as mindfulness, that being present with the moment as it is allows us to respond to that moment more clearly, and that in ACT it's about working towards our core values as an individual. It is a theoretical approach which involves various different forms of activity, exercise, and ways of approaching it with an individual. It is based upon the theory of contextual behaviour science, which is a growing body of evidence that allows individuals to become informed about psychological principles from this background and to then bring it into clinical practice. So what's the difference between the psychological principles of ACT and CBT? These are two things that can be used to drive what we do. Some of the common differences between the two. CBT is a diffuse term covering several aligned approaches. This is kind of an organic process as has happened over time. Whereas in ACT, it is more theoretically unified through CBS, and ACT is more of a guiding theory to guide practice. In CBT, thoughts are viewed as positive or negative, or adaptive or maladaptive, and we are encouraged to be able to recognise a positive thought or a negative thought, and to be able to challenge or promote it appropriately. Whereas ACT says that thoughts are neither positive or negative, but they are entities in their own right, and that we can choose to respond to them, but it must be in service of our values. In CBT, it's about challenging the thoughts that we consider good or bad, whereas in ACT, it is more about tolerating thoughts or being able to change how we respond to them, flexibly approaching situations to apply coping strategies. In CBT, actions must be identified to meet the needs of whether a thought is bad or good, whereas in ACT it is more about following the values you've set out for yourself. And similar to mindfulness, being present in the moment around you is also of importance within ACT. So this is a common theoretical basis for practicing ACT. This is known as the hexaplex, in that it is a six-pointed shape that has flexibility at its core. So each of these 6 components we will cover in more detail in the next few presentations. But as you can see, there are a number of different elements that can be satisfied working through ACT. And often a much more straightforward way to demonstrate it is to give us the opposite of it. And we can see how it's relevant to chronic pain. So This is the opposite of the concept of act. It's known as the evil twin, and it is centered around psychological inflexibility on this occasion. So maybe consider the patients that you work with whilst having a look at this model. So lack of values and clarity, so knowing what to do, what is important, when and how. To be inactive or impulsive, or perhaps to avoid being involved in anything or doing things. Attachment to the conceptualized self, so an idea of who you are and who you were and who you should be, rather than being in touch with who you actually are at that present moment. Cognitive fusion is the concept of being purely fused to one's own thoughts, that they are all true inherently and that they must be obeyed. That we have avoidance of experience and choose not to do things that we are not comfortable with or concerned about. And dominance of the worries about the future and the importance of what has happened in the past. So what we're going to do next is look at these concepts that we've just talked about, the make-up act, and explore how it can be used in practice. I'm ideally going to do this over 2 or 3 presentations of a similar sort of length that you might find interesting and give you some ideas on how to make use of ACT as a principle. Some references there if anyone's interested, and thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.